From the Skyterra Wellness Retreat, this is the Inspired Intentions Podcast, where we help people build the skills and mindset to live a healthy life. Hey everyone, before we dive into today's episode, if you've been enjoying our podcast, take a moment to rate and review. It may seem like a small thing, but our ratings and reviews make a huge difference in the quality of our show. They help us reach more listeners like you so we can continue bringing you more amazing content. So, if you've found inspiration, learned something new, or just love tuning in every week, please rate the Inspired Intentions Podcast 5 stars and leave us a review and even share with a friend. We truly appreciate each and every one of you. Now let's get into the show. Inspired Intentions listeners, welcome back again. We are happy to be back. And by we, I mean myself and none other than Kenzie Osler. Kenzie.
Hello. I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me, Alan.
Yeah, thanks for coming on here and being a part of this with me. Listeners, if you didn't notice, we had to skip a couple of weeks, and that is because all of Western North Carolina was devastated by a Hurricane Helene, and we are back and recovering, and we wanted to come back with our first episode of the Inspired Intentions podcast back since the storm with just that, the idea of after the storm. And Kenzie and I kind of created an episode here where we wanted to talk a little bit about our experiences and resiliency, grief and loss and mental fortitude and what that means to us. We feel like it's really important in this time to talk about these things, and that's what we're going to do.
Yeah.
Happy to have you on here, Kenzie.
Thank you so much.
Just for listeners, a reminder that Kenzie hasn't been on here for a while. It's been since, what, February?
Yeah. It seems like yesterday, but when we looked it up, it's been almost a year.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
You did an episode on right before Valentine's Day, a really cool episode about, what was it, clothing and colors and how to fit the body and things like that.
Dressing to express yourself.
Express yourself. Episode 172. So if you want to go to listen to Kenzie's other episode, go back and do that. It's a good one. But all about today's episode, Hurricane Helene, and let's start there. Kenzie, how are you doing?
I'm doing pretty okay. We're getting a little bit back to normal. Our kids got back to school last week, and sports are starting, and they're able to get back to a little bit of normalcy. We're pretty lucky because we're more south of Asheville than, main Asheville and those areas that were really devastated by the flood. And so we were able to get back to school earlier than other people, but we're happy to get a little bit of normalcy. Although when we're driving through, town and getting from place to place, we still see the devastation everywhere.
Yeah, there's a lot of that. You live closer down towards Hendersonville kind of area, a little bit lower on the French Broad. They got hit pretty hard down there.
Yeah.
My girlfriend Lydia was just down there running the other day, and she said some of the stuff that she saw in places that you would never expect it. It's wild.
Yeah. I mean, because the flood came, but then since we live in such a dense forest, the amount of trees that are down, and I have a lot of friends in Asheville, and seeing their properties of just massive trees littering their yards and things, and it's crazy. So there's devastation of flooding, but there's also devastation of how many trees and wood and stuff that still needs to be cleared, and it's crazy.
And a lot of landslides too, where everything here is at an angle, and there was a lot of earth that was moved from a lot of water through the storm as well, which has been a big cause of the problems. But I'm happy to be getting back to normal here. I'm happy to be back giving our listeners a podcast.
Yeah.
That we were honestly super fortunate here. We're coming from Brevard, North Carolina, Pisgah Forest, North Carolina, more towards the headwaters of the river and the drainage, if you will. All the water kind of funnels into the French Broad River here, and that actually curves and heads north towards Asheville, which is cool. And Skyterra was kind of protected. We got awfully lucky.
Yeah, absolutely. Even though the floods came up onto our property, but luckily it didn't hit any of our buildings, and we were out of utilities for a week or so. But luckily, no damage to any of the buildings, and that was a huge blessing for sure.
Huge blessing. Yeah, I mean, again, not everybody downstream was as fortunate, but water. We in Western North Carolina hasn't seen anything like this since 1916. There was a big storm back then, and there's been a few other storms that have definitely devastated the area, but nothing quite like what we saw from Helene, as far as inches of rain, floodwaters coming up, and earth moved and winds and things like that. So we were pretty fortunate. We're back at it. We've had guests last week. We've had guests this week. We've got almost 30?
Yeah.
30 next week.
Yeah.
The leaf color here is beautiful right now, and it's the calm after the storm. Everything's kind of starting to get back to normal, which I'm very, very, very appreciative of. What was the experience like for you as far as during the storm? And
I mean, some people say luckily. I say luckily we slept through a lot of it.
Yeah.
We woke up to a lot of the devastation. We have big trees around our house, and a couple that I was very worried about because I was wanting to get them taken down before the storm hit, and we didn't get it done. But they're down now, so we don't have to worry about that in the morning or later. But it was when I was 11 years old, my home burned down, and it was one of my biggest fears of my life. And I remember just watching my parents feel, have that look of just no hope. Like they had nothing to provide for their kids, and they had nothing. We just had nothing. And I remember just kneeling on the ground, watching the trees sway outside and worrying that those trees were going to land on our home, and feeling maybe a little taste of what my parents felt like with my children. So we decided we're going to go down in the basement, and we're going to, at least we're in the basement. If a tree falls on the house, we'll be okay. We're grateful that nothing like that happened, but I do remember that feeling of just like so much worry of, or is me and my family going to be safe? And luckily we were only awake for a couple of hours of watching that, and we tried to distract them by playing games, and we were out of power, so we were doing things by flashlight. And but once the winds died down, we got chainsaws out and got at it, got working to get out of our driveway to make sure other properties around us were safe, and make sure our neighbors were safe, and made sure we could get out of our neighborhood. And it was pretty crazy.
Yeah.
But I thought that what we went through was crazy and terrible and bad. And then we had, luckily for a little bit there in that morning, I had enough service to call out to my family. They all live in the western United States, and call out to them and let them know we were safe and that we had made it through the night. And then I saw some things just on social media and of the damage, and I was like, this is nothing. We experienced literally nothing compared to what Asheville's going through. And then we lost service for a while.
Yeah.
And then once everything started coming in about a day later, we started getting service, and we started seeing everything. It was just unbelievable. Like my heart was so sick.
Mine too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You weren't here, right? What was your experience, Alan?
Yeah, it was a little different for me. I was actually, oddly enough, on vacation when the hurricane was coming through. If you know me, I like to do things that are off grid, and I was on a backcountry trip in Montana that I had planned, 8 months before.
Wow.
When I text hey, I'm this is the last text for 5 or 6 days or whatever, there is nothing on the maps.
You had no idea.
Saying that anything was going to happen. I thought I was leaving everything just fine. The last thing that I saw was the potential for a bunch of rain, which was one of the problems that happened with this particular quote unquote perfect storm of. There was a ton of rain beforehand, and that was all that I saw. I was like, oh, they're going to get some rain. We need some rain.
And we're used to that in North Carolina. We're used to a lot of rain.
So I thought nothing was wrong.
Yeah.
And then I got back out, it was literally just a couple of hours before the storm hit. And Lydia was like, yeah, everything's really, really, really damp here. It's been raining. There's a hurricane coming. I've got water jugs filled up. I've got phone's charged. I was like, all right, you need to charge this power bank, if power goes out for, a couple days or whatever, and do this and do this. And, all the like small basic things that you would do from a storm. Because we've had stuff like
we're used to power going out for a few hours or a couple days at the longest.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then, for me, I'm at my buddy's house in Montana waiting for a text response the next day, and you get nothing. And then the next day you get nothing. Yeah. And then you're like, what?
Something's really wrong.
And then you start seeing reports and what's happened, and you knew something pretty bad happened. Is everybody okay? All that kind of stuff runs through your head. And I was trying to get a flight in Asheville, which
was impossible.
Was basically impossible. Shout out to the airlines that they got me figured out really quick to get me as close as they possibly could back home. Most people usually don't say shout out to the airlines, but hey, I got here. But, I arrived super late, and I had a buddy. I flew into Charlotte, had a buddy drive me up with a bunch of supplies, and got to the house, and luckily everything was fine. The roads were rough getting back up here, but everything was okay. And then from there, for me, it turned into, what can I do to help others? Because I realized, like, hey, we're okay. I was running a hostel out of my house because we managed to somehow be like 1% that had power still.
Wow.
So like every couch and every bed was filled up.
Yeah.
And all the people that were in my house that didn't have power, that didn't have water, that didn't have all these amenities that a lot of, like again, 99% of other people in our area didn't have. Every single one of those people were going out and helping other people every single day.
Yeah.
And I think that really leans towards what we're trying to get at here, in this idea of after the storm and resiliency and, caring for others. All these people, their houses were non-functional. They can't contact their loved ones or anything, but they're going out and helping other people. So we started going out and finding people that were in need. We were driving with what limited gas we had and cutting trees, like you were saying, and helping people that got the worst of it.
Yeah. There was damage obviously in our neighborhood, but in order to like get out on roads and stuff, we were completely fine, like pretty much after that first day.
Yeah.
And I remember sitting there on Sunday, and I just had this sinking feeling of like worthlessness. Like, and the reason why was because I remember when my house burnt down, our community completely surrounded us. And then I realized the thought of like, we were one of how many, no one else, you don't know a lot of people whose house burns down, but like our community came to us, but we were in the middle of this crisis where our community needed things that we couldn't give, and especially immediately. Clear roads that they could go find their loved ones, cell phone service that they could call their loved ones and see if they were safe.
Clean drinking water.
Yes, we had, water and food, but in the neighborhood I was in, not a lot of people needed that. And so it was like, I remember sitting there feeling so helpless and like, and depressed, like, how can I? And so once I was able to like get out in the community and actually do something for the community, my heart started to heal. It's just crazy how when you like see someone in need and you're able to go help them in any way, like no matter if you've been through that together, that's when your heart starts to like heal. I'm like, okay, we're going to be okay. You see the community, you see everybody banding together, you see them contributing excess that they have, contributing their time, their efforts, chopping down trees, mucking out houses. And, that's the sense of community that I have been able to see. And that's really what we're here to talk about today.
Yeah, I agree. I think, I felt guilty too. Like we have water, we have power, we're doing what we can to help take care of people. But I remember the guilty feeling that I had setting in when there was a spot where we could drive that was about 45 minutes away from the house that had cell phone service, very limited cell phone service, where I could get out to folks. And we would try and drive there, once every 3 days. And of course the roads are getting better over time. But I saw a post that a friend of mine from no more than 45 minutes north of Asheville put out, of just like begging for help for his very remote kind of cut off community.
Yeah.
And that's where that feeling of guilt came in, and that was where like we need to go help people. Like we're good. We need to do something.
Yeah.
As quickly as we can, because it seems like that the long-term effects of what they got are way more significant than what we got.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of survivor's guilt almost set in.
Yeah. I heard it reframed a little bit and I really liked that, because I had that guilt and that gratitude of like, I'm so grateful. But then somebody said it's your survivor's grief.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that that settled better on my heart, because guilty is like doing something wrong.
Right.
You didn't do anything wrong, Ellen. But it's that grief of like, wow, like they're going through so much, and you have grief for what they lost, and we have grief for what our community has lost.
Mm-hmm.
And we have that survivor's grief of like, wow, like what do we do now?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I want to, speaking of like what we do now, I want to talk about some of the really beautiful stuff that we saw. Like what all things did you see or did you experience or do that people helping people, this idea of after the storm?
Well, the first time I saw a lineman truck on our road, I mean, we live pretty rural, but not like in the middle of nowhere. But we had 2 bridges washed out on either side of the main road that we use. And so I thought it was going to be days before we saw, or maybe even weeks before we saw linemen. And the first time I saw linemen on my road, I started crying. It's like, we had thousands and thousands of people from even Canada, and, around the United States bring their trucks in, and they are still working tirelessly to get power to the rest of Western North Carolina.
Eastern Tennessee.
Yeah. Eastern Tennessee. Georgia had crazy outages as well. And so, the linemen, our community, like I go past churches every single day coming to work, and they're full of just supplies. And people
everywhere.
just brought supplies. People here that had excess, but also so many outside people. I even have a friend in Utah who loaded up a whole semi worth of supplies to bring out to Western North Carolina. And, there was people across the nation who just, they knew of need, and they shipped things. And so now there's just places everywhere where if you don't have a case of water, you go pick one up. You don't have to even go to the store and buy it, And I see people going out and clearing wood every single weekend.
There's so much. I mean, we're weeks removed from it, and there's so much still to be cleared.
Oh, months of work, I'm guessing. And then, mucking houses and just, we went out to Barnardsville 2 weekends ago. We were in Hendersonville this last weekend helping and serving. And, it doesn't matter what they needed. Everyone was willing to just pitch in and help. Neighbors came over. That last weekend there was a neighbor who was like, oh, he put up these trees to kind of separate himself from us, but I'm here to help. And I think that that's beautiful, that it's bringing neighbors together and giving opportunity to, again, let our hearts heal.
Yeah, I experienced a lot of the same. I thought, some of the most powerful community things that I saw were the people that were very, very close to what happened, like I was saying, and they had tragic things happen to them, and they were going out and helping people. But then, like what you were talking about, like the amount of people that I saw from all over the dang country coming in with stuff. Like I've heard of large companies bringing in full tractor trailers of frozen chicken and beef in trucks to distribute to people that are cooking meals for folks. I heard and physically saw dozens of privately owned helicopters bringing supplies in. I mean, I was at a place that was really remote that got hit really, really hard, and every 15 minutes there was a chopper landing. Wow. And there was an assembly line of people pulling supplies off, and it was everything from baby diapers to water to food items that we were then going and distributing house to house as much as we possibly could. And like that stuff just, that hits you real hard. And then even something that hits a little closer to home, actually really close to home, is we were in Rosman, North Carolina, which is just upstream. Some of the coworkers that work here at Skyterra were there helping distribute stuff, organizing everything that came in and then helping like give it out, organizing a drive-through basically for distribution. And I saw one coworker there that you can't reach out to anybody, but I just hadn't thought of them. And I like walked up and I was like, are you okay? Like, what are you doing here? And they're like, oh, we're fine. We had a tree go through our house, but we know how to camp.
Yeah. Oh.
And they were literally in line handing stuff out to people that, you know, it's hard to describe that feeling and what you saw.
Yeah.
And that's somebody that works here. You know what I mean? So that was
beautiful.
It was a really cool thing to experience, and the community coming together and the resiliency of folks here in the Blue Ridge Mountains and beyond what people did to help and are still doing
right
to help a lot of these areas that are still affected, just like you're saying.
Yeah, I think it's going to take a lot of time. And again, we're grateful that we're, a little bit south or a little bit more south so that we are up and running. And honestly, like, I think that it's important for our guests to understand that like coming here and taking care of themselves is super important when we're coming out of a storm of life. I had a couple of conversations with my sisters during those first few days of the storm, and they were just like, I can't believe what you're going through. And I said to them, I can't believe what you're going through. Theirs wasn't a physical storm. Theirs is a different storm in life. Everyone is going through a different storm in life. And it doesn't mean that our storm is worse or, more extreme or, in a different way. Yes, but we all have these storms that come up and we have to deal with them in some way. And so that's what I love so much about Skyterra Wellness is that we are able to help our guests understand how to deal with the storms in life so that they don't tear you down and don't keep you down for too long, because there are definitely going to be times when you're going to be down, but we have that ability to rise up and rise above the storms of life and help to contribute when we have that ability to contribute.
Yeah, and we're working here and having some perspective on that, I think, was really helpful for me in something that you have here in the notes about, taking care of yourself, and you can't take care of others if you're not taking care of yourself at the same time. And I think that struck home with me. I think, this whole experience has given me definitely a different perspective on what we need and what we don't in life.
And having that kind of like, because I got those notes or got that idea during COVID, everybody, that was a huge storm that everybody went through. And that thought of, you can't pour from your own or from an empty cup, and you can't expect someone else to fill your cup for you.
Right.
So I've been trying and practicing for the past, 4.5 years, tools that help fill my own cup, and being able to have that kind of as a store so that when these storms of life come along, like, oh, I know what to do. I need to take care of myself so I can also contribute to others. And so what are some things that you do that help you to fill your cup, Alan?
Well, as a lot of people know, that I love to spend time outside, and it's been interesting that, during this, a lot of like the national forest and things where I do spend time was closed because of the damage. It's all back open now. We're very, very fortunate and thankful for the areas near us are pretty much all back open. So I've been trying to get out and get some sunlight in my eyes. We've had honestly beautiful weather here since the storm. I mean, it's been dry since, oddly enough, but it's been absolutely beautiful. And I've been trying to get out and enjoy some of that. That's one of those things where you can't go do it and then you want it even more. So that's one thing. I've come back to work a couple of weeks ago. That's been really nice to get some normalcy there, and interact with our guests and just kind of get back into the groove in the daily. And then also still trying to figure out how I can help people that are still in need.
Sure.
Because there's a lot of that around, and that's honestly been filling my cup up a lot. And I would say those are my top 3 that I've really tried to invest in.
Yeah.
I'd say, you probably a little bit of the same way with like getting back to work. It's selfishly, it's been great to see you here more often because you've been here in the office some more. What are some other things that you've been up to?
I'm going to shout out Rachel because I know that you guys have done a couple of podcasts about doing a streak, right? And I decided probably about two or 3 weeks maybe before the storm hit, I was going to start doing yoga or some kind of mindfulness every day. And I can't run because I have a bad knee, so I'm not doing a running streak like Rachel, but she did encourage on one of the podcasts to find something that you could do consistently. And so I just decided I needed more mindfulness and stress management and maybe some stretching and yoga. And so I started doing that about 2 weeks before the storm hit. And I think I broke my streak during the storm because I just forgot one of the days. I don't know how.
Yeah, who knows how, right?
I know, right? Nothing else was on my mind. But I've been continuing to do that, and I feel like that's been really good for me just to find a place of calm and taking time for calm in my life. And that's going to serve me now. It's going to serve me in the future when a different kind of storm hits, right? And then I also decided I was going to start doing a gratitude journal because, like you said earlier in the episode, is like seeing so much devastation and damage and things that have happened, you realize what's really important, right? And so, I'm able to sit down and write a few things every day of what I'm grateful for. Yeah. Whether that's my body that I can do yoga or my eyes that I can see the sun or get sunlight through, I just try to find the small things that really mean a lot and write them down and be grateful. Those are keeping me grounded right now.
All very solid practices. Yeah. It's all good stuff.
And then, like you said, getting back out in the community. Like we've been doing that on the weekends because we're back into quote unquote normal life, and it's super, super busy during the week, but we've been out and serving the last few weekends, and it fills my soul for sure.
Absolutely. So I think our call to action today is kind of just that. After what we've experienced, we want all of our listeners to go out and do something for someone else around you. Yeah. That's what we landed on. Yeah. Go out and find somebody that needs some help. Go out and do something nice for someone. Help them. You don't ever know what kind of storm somebody is in and how much that a small action can mean to them. And that's one of my big takeaways.
Right. I mean, we knew our community was strong already, right? We already knew that. Yeah. Asheville is just such an eclectic place to be. And if you've ever spent any time there, you want to be there. And it's even stronger now. Yeah. And
agreed.
That's how communities are built, is through reaching out to neighbors and friends and anyone in need. And I think that's something pretty simple that you can, whether that's a text or whatever, it can be as simple as a smile at somebody in the grocery store. And that's how communities are built. And I think that's a beautiful call to action.
Beautifully said. Well, listeners, we're doing good. Yeah. We're back. We've got some podcasts planned for you. If you got any questions for us, you can email us at inspiredintentions@skyterrawellness.com. Skyterra is open. A lot of places in Western North Carolina are open. There's a lot of places that could use business right now, as far as small businesses in local communities in Eastern Tennessee and Western North Carolina. We're doing great. We've got a lot of lovely guests here on campus. I have one guest upstairs right now that's also doing a streak, just like what you're talking about, a walking streak that's been going for almost a year now, I think, which is cool. Awesome. So we've gotten a million texts and emails. Yes. I've gotten personal texts and personal emails from past guests that I can't thank those people enough. How you doing? You need anything? Are you guys okay? Thinking about you. That's just me. I'm sure you've gotten a ton too on the reservations line.
Oh yeah. We're still getting them, but the first few days after the storm, that's pretty much all we did was respond to texts and emails of concern. We're very grateful for our guests and those who we love you all.
Yeah, y'all are awesome. I can't say thank you enough. And anybody that's listening that's helped anybody else through this experience, in any of the states that were affected by any of the storms. We appreciate y'all. And any last thoughts or last words?
No, I don't think so.
Y'all can weather the storm just like we did.
Yes.
So
Stay strong.
Stay strong, and we will catch you all next week.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Thanks,
Bye,
everybody.
guys.
The Inspired Intentions podcast is a production of Skyterra Wellness Retreat. Special thanks to our executive producer, Alan Broyhill. Send us your questions and comments to inspiredintentions@skyterrawellness.com. Subscribe on iTunes and everywhere podcasts can be found. If someone you know might benefit from this podcast, share Inspired Intentions with them and give us a 5-star rating. Join us next week as we cut through the unrealistic noise on diets and fitness and show you how healthy living fits seamlessly into your already busy life. Thanks for listening.